From KAMR Local 4 News, your local election headquarters, this is Politics Today.
We hear from local and now state officials as the situation between Amarillo Economic Development Corporation and the City Council continues to develop. By the way, the City Council also discussing putting a 10 Commandments monument at the new City Hall. How the council members feel about that decision. Thanks for joining us this morning. We've had several new developments regarding the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation over this past week. Starting on Monday, 4 members of the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation submitted their resignation letters. 2 of those resignation letters came from the chairman and vice chairman after citing, I'm quoting here, irreparable damage by Amarillo Mayor Cole Stanley and other city council members, according to an announcement, again, from the supporters of the AEDC. Politics Today's Jack Kessler spoke with supporters of the AEDC founding community member Lloyd Brown about what this means for the AEDC and the community moving forward.
I don't have permission to speak for them, so I think their letters are very descriptive of the reasons that they felt that they needed to step down. As a person that has been on the board before, I never had to live under the kind of scrutiny and the level of accusations that this board has.
In AEDC Chairman Andrew Hall's letter of resignation, he says, quote, "I can no longer serve in good conscience amid a leadership environment that is eroding the very foundation of public service." And adding regarding Mayor Cole Stanley, his overreach has created conditions that not only stifle genuine progress and growth, but also undermine the spirit of public service, dissuading those who truly care about our community's welfare from stepping forward to lead. End quote. Brown adds that there are site selectors that help companies find the best fit for them when they are wanting to grow or make a transition. And Brown says these site selectors are not looking for a place that has conflict.
The conflict between this council and the AEDC board creates an atmosphere of uncertainty. They're not going to come to some place that they don't have real clarity on what kind of opportunity the community is going to be able to provide.
Brown says, speaking to the AEDC, there has been a massive slowdown of inquiries into the community since this has taken place.
I think the main thing is to recognize that this turmoil is impacting not the AEDC and not the City Council, but it's impacting each and every citizen that benefits from the infrastructure that the taxes and the sales tax generate, the activity in the business. And so this is about our citizens. This isn't about the 2 organizations separately. It's about our whole community and the impact that it's having on the community.
We should note that board member Deepak Patel did not resign from the AEDC Board of Directors and was the only remaining member. That was prior to some appointments. To read those full letters of resignations from the AEDC, you can go over to our website, myhighplains.com. Now, speaking of that, on Tuesday, Amarillo City Council discussed several matters related to the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation, including the Articles of Incorporation, those resignations we just talked about, and the appointment of new board members. During the meeting, City Council did not take action on 2 consent items related to AEDC. The first item would have considered approving a resolution amending AEDC's Articles of Incorporation. Council members stated they felt like they didn't have enough time to go over the changes and didn't feel comfortable moving forward without a functioning board. No action was taken on the item relieving Andrew Hall of his duty as board president because Andrew Hall was one of those who resigned. That happened after it was put on the agenda. Council did, however, make a 5-0 vote to temporarily appoint Alex Fairley, Howard Smith, Council members Don Tips and Josh Kraft to AEDC's board in order to get them back up and running. Here's the mayor.
We need to give direction to Ms. City Secretary to open back up the applicant pool for another 30 days and to reach out to all applicants, giving them a short update on what took place here today, the change in the temporary board, and if they're willing to serve still or not. And then we would ask you to bring those back to us as soon as you have them so that we'd have as much time to reach out and do our own personal interviews with the intention of bringing something back in January.
The City of Amarillo has opened the applications for the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors. There's a list of qualifications for anyone wanting to serve on that board, and you can read that full list of qualifications on our website, myhighplains.com. Also during Tuesday's meeting, Amarillo City Council asked the internal auditor questions regarding the AEDC audit into their expenditures and reimbursements. This was part of the audit for fiscal years 2022 to 2024. Unil Gerber was looking at the reasonableness of reimbursements and business expenses. Gerber reminded council he found no exceptions to the process because there were no policies and procedures for spending or approval limits. Mayor Stanley and the auditor both agreed policies and procedures need to be put in place, and the mayor responded to criticism that his investigation has gone on too long. Again, let's roll the tape of the mayor.
So it's important that we, as your elected representatives, have done our due diligence so that if we say this, and we are not saying this yet, but if we say no findings, you know that's because we looked.
Mayor Stanley went on to say that he wants to revise and amend a few articles with the intention of improving the EDC, not with the intention of harming employees or pushing people away. Following the resignation of those 4 Amarillo EDC board members on Monday, President and CEO of the Texas Economic Development Council, Carlton Schwab, released a statement criticizing the mayor and council's actions regarding the AEDC. In Schwab's letter, he stated he's watched the recent drama surrounding AEDC and says Kevin Carter and his staff are highly skilled professionals that are respected across the country. Schwab says the efforts to impugn Carter's integrity is shameful, unnecessary, and borderline hateful. Schwab says the council's decision to have an attorney state all EDC expenditures must be approved by council on a bi-weekly or monthly basis is distressing, and that publicly revealing what companies they're working with on a monthly basis does not allow the EDC to protect their competitive environment. Take a listen.
In fact, you have city councils running economic development programs, and companies are not going to want to operate in the political sphere, period. They want stability.
Speaking of that, we reached out to former board member Scott Bentley. He's one of the ones that resigned. On Thursday, we talked to him about the conflict. He says it's a sad day for the Amarillo community, and he hates to see what has transpired in the last 90 days. Here's more on that interview.
The progress that we've made on some companies that Kevin and his team have been working on bringing to town, they have just have decided to move on. When they see dysfunction within the city, these companies that are looking at us, they'll just go elsewhere.
Bentley says they aren't just competing with other cities in Texas and throughout the country, but with other cities across the world. Bentley says they want Amarillo's EDC to be the best that it can be moving forward, and they all need to work together moving forward to make Amarillo the best it can be. Bentley says they want Amarillo's EDC to be the best, again, moving forward. We did reach out to Alex Farrelly, who was recently appointed as one of those temporary ADC board members. He wouldn't go on camera, but he did send us this response. Mr. Schwab's comments are unfortunate. For Mr. Schwab to attempt to intervene in a complex local issue for which he does not have personal contextual understanding is unprofessional. It causes me to ask whether his unproductive comments are part of what we get for our Texas EDC dues. Farrelly went on to say that, quote, while we clearly have work to do, the sky is not falling at the EDC, and I'm confident the new board will steer the ship to a healthy place. If you'd like to see the full letter for context from Schwab and our continuing coverage on this item, I know it's very layered, head over to our website, myhighplains.com. Amarillo City Council also agreeing during Tuesday's meeting that putting a 10 Commandments monument at the new City Hall is a good idea, although at least one member said they needed to explore the legal implications of doing so. Politics Today's Jack Kessler is back with more on that story.
According to Mayor Cole Stanley, this 10 Commandments monument at the new City Hall would be a gift from the council members, and they would be asked to pay for it.
There is no sales tax dollars, there's no property tax dollars, there's no cost to the city.
He adds the Ten Commandments are a historical document and not just a religious artifact, and it goes to their core values.
It's the bedrock of the way we live in a civil society. We all look at this as we put standards and values out as a community. It's not a controversial item, and it honors the foundation and the bedrock of what our country's built on.
He says with the consent of council, they would get a mock-up drawing of the monument in front of them by December to know the size, confirm the cost, and work on a delivery schedule and when it will be at the new City Hall. The Emerald City Council's outside counsel, George Hyde, was asked about the legality of the placement of the Ten Commandments monument.
The state capitol was challenged for its Ten Commandment monument. United States Supreme Court, they did find that the statute may remain on that property. So if we are mirroring the circumstances that the Texas Capitol experienced, which I understand is your intent, then it would be consistent with the U.S. Supreme Court precedent on the issue in Texas.
All council members were on board with the idea of the Ten Commandments monument.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. It's the basis of where our laws were founded from, so I think it's a good representation.
Councilmember Les Simpson said he would be in favor of looking at it, but he said before they move forward on it, perhaps they can also hear from the First Liberty Institute, who has defended many monument cases. Attorney George Hyde. Now, when I say Attorney George Hyde, he is the attorney for the city council. He's not the city attorney. He agreed with Simpson and says they are a program for First Amendment liberties, and they can help support and defend the city in the event there is a challenge. Texas lawmakers are discussing changes to DEI and faculty governing on college campuses. Hear why students are speaking up when we come back. Welcome back, everyone. Governor Abbott prohibits college tuition increases in Texas. He sent a letter to Texas colleges and universities saying he will not support any tuition increase. Governor Abbott says his office spoke with the Board of Regents at every public university system and agreed that no institution in Texas should approve tuition increases for the 25-26 and 26-27 academic school years. We spoke with the president of West Texas A&M to hear his thoughts on the tuition freeze.
But I think we can work through this very carefully and thoughtfully, not reduce the quality of our educational offerings, and continue to find more efficiencies and just ways to trim our sails, because we don't have a choice. I mean, that's what needs to happen.
Governor Abbott continues in his letter to say that college affordability will remain a top priority in the state. State lawmakers convene for the next Texas legislative session in just 2 months. And they're plotting big plans after a decisive Republican victory. Last week, some lawmakers considered ways to further restrict DEI and faculty governing on college campuses, prompting some students to speak up. Politics Today's Ryan Chandler was there and has this story.
At the Capitol Monday, a showdown between state government and student government.
Those who are standing before you will inevitably sit in your seats with the degrees you are aiming to defund. But you can decide if we will be looking towards the future or forced to look back.
Lawmakers consider further curtailing DEI programs and regulating faculty senates, groups of elected professors who guide academic policy like curriculum. They worry those bodies may push policies contrary to state law.
Do the political leanings of faculty influence the curriculum that's developed and offered, in your opinion?
In my opinion, that is not the case.
The hearing drew concerned students like Edwin Escamilla, the student body president of Austin Community College.
The Faculty Senate is one of the most vital components of educational institutions.
He argues individual campuses are best governed by their own faculty.
The students have a voice in these committees, and I feel like I have an obligation to come here and testify and defend the right to, have a say in what's going on in their institutions, because again, a lot of these institutions, especially Austin Community College, they fund themselves through property taxes, and so through that, the people that pay that, we should have a say in what's going on.
The hearing is expected to prompt new legislation placing guardrails on how faculties can govern themselves, even after the state banned DEI last year. Professors urging the legislature to view them as partners, not enemies.
Those of us who participate as faculty senators do so out of a respect, concern, and even love for our institutions.
Tuesday was the first day of bill filing in Austin. Up next, we're going to tell you more about the first bill filed and the expectations for the quickly approaching 89th legislative session. Lawmakers set a new record today, filing more bills on the first day than ever before. It may be a sign of pent-up demand as state leaders eye ambitious reforms, but more bills means more competition. Politics Today's Ryan Chandler brings us a look inside the legislature from the Capitol.
Well, it's a big day after a long night here at the Texas Capitol. Some staffers camping out behind the Senate chamber all night to secure a spot in line. There's no prize for first place, but it could be a sign of things to come as Republicans rally for a historic year.
The pre-session sleepover, more symbolic than strategic. The legislature gives no favor for being first. But lawmakers are eager to get back to work, setting a record on Tuesday, submitting more than 1,500 bills, the most ever filed on the first day.
A lot of pent-up demand for legislation. Certainly Republicans have been emboldened by the election results here in Texas.
Some of the first filed on border security, aimed at restricting undocumented students from getting in-state tuition, requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote, and allowing Texas to negotiate border security with Mexico. Democrats ambitious on abortion and voting access, filing bills to create an exception for rape in the abortion ban and to allow electronic and same-day voter registration.
Typically what happens is you've got a handful of members who want to claim ownership on a particular subject matter, and so they will rush in order to get a low bill number.
But the legislative session is designed to kill bills, not pass them. Last year, lawmakers filed more than 8,000 bills. Only 1,169 became law, a success rate of less than 15%. And it'll be a while before we see the plans for the biggest items of the year, from public money for private schools to property tax cuts and the future of state-funded border security. All major priorities of Governor Abbott.
The first 60 days, the only items that they can take up in a committee hearing or take any action on are those designated as emergencies by the governor. So right now, this is more poetry than prose.
Up next, we're taking a look at how the next Trump administration could shake up Texas politics. We'll have a look at Texans heading to Washington and those rumored to be interested in a federal role. Friday was tough for two top Texans thought to be possible leaders in Trump's Washington. John Cornyn lost his race for Senate Majority Leader, and Ken Paxton, long considered a possible Attorney General nominee, passed over for a Republican House member. Politics Today's Ryan Chandler back with us now to take a deeper look into how Texans could play a role in the next administration.
Texas, a training ground for Trump's Washington.
A new Trump administration provides opportunities for a lot of Republicans who have been stalwart Trump fans. Wesley Hunt from Houston's a good example. Beth Van Dyne from North Texas is another good example. They'll have a greater position and power to be able to manufacture what they'd like in terms of policy in the next session.
And Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller on the shortlist for USDA. He interviewed for that job in 2016. Attorney General Ken Paxton, a top candidate for DOJ until just this afternoon, passed over for Florida Rep Matt Gaetz.
I think both Miller and Paxton have been waiting for this moment. They know that they're in Trump's orbit, and they may not get the nod because there are a lot of people who may want that, but it's certainly the case that they've set themselves up perfectly.
Senator John Cornyn also falling short of one of the most powerful posts in Washington. His bid to succeed Mitch McConnell for Senate Majority Leader falling short by just 3 votes to South Dakota's John Thune. Here's Cornyn on that race late last month.
In the end, it's not about me and it's not about the other candidate. It's about what our country needs, and our country needs to make some tough choices.
Wednesday, he congratulated his colleagues heading for leadership and said, "We are united and prepared to enact President Trump's agenda." The shuffle in Washington will reverberate down to state politics, with some ambitious lawmakers waiting in the wings for the dominoes to fall.
This might be a real sea change moment for Texas politics if we see some of these statewide officials who've been in office for so long exit to D.C.
We'll wrap things up after this. Welcome back, everyone. We covered a lot of ground today. So if you want to go back and take a look at those articles, we have them on our website. That is myhighplains.com. And make sure you stay tuned all of this week as we have the very latest coming out of whether it's city or state or national politics. We will have you covered. Again, thanks for joining this morning. We hope that you have the most of your Sunday, and we'll see you back here next week.